Yeah, because usually it really is not. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Pet Pawcast today. I'm your host, Dr. Roberta Westbrook, and we appreciate you joining us here at the Houston SPCA, the campus for all animals. And today we have an exciting show for you today. I have a special guest. My guest here today is Emily. Emily is one of our Texas A&M fourth-year veterinary students. She is with us for 2 weeks along with some of her classmates. They come here to learn all about practicing veterinary medicine in a shelter environment. So we are going to talk to her today about the path to becoming a veterinarian or any veterinary medical professional. There's lots of you out there who have a love and a passion for animals, and you may be wondering, how do you get more experience? How do you work to save more lives? And we're going to give you a few tips on how you can do that. But before we get into those questions and answers, I really want to introduce you to a wonderful pet that we have available here at our adoption center. This is Trooper. Trooper is an adult male, we think between 5 and 7 years old. He's neutered, and he is really a bundle of joy and energy. He has a lot of fun playing with toys. He is reported to do very well with children. He knows a few tricks, as you can see. He knows sit. Good job, Trooper. Good job. So he would make a wonderful family pet. We encourage you to come on down to the campus this weekend. Bring your family, bring your friends, and take a look at the dogs and the cats and the puppies and kittens that we have available for you. There's no appointment necessary, so you can just come right on in, and we're open from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. daily. I also want to remind you that next weekend we have a special event for you. It's going to be so much fun. We're going to have an open house. And so we're going to have activities for the whole family. So please make sure that you plan to come to our open house next Saturday. And we'll remind you about that throughout the week. But now we'll start talking about how to increase your helpfulness in the area of veterinary medicine. So, I've been a veterinarian for 18 years, and I got interested in veterinary medicine somewhat late in life, around college age. But I wanted to talk to Emily and say, tell me about your path to becoming a veterinarian. And if you had any tips that you could give to young kids, what might you say they could do early on to help their journey to becoming a veterinary professional?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So I had a little bit of a long journey to veterinary medicine as well. When I was a little girl, probably about 10, 11, 12 years old, I really wanted to be a veterinarian. I loved animals. But unfortunately, I went to a really competitive school district. And so I was told pretty early on that, math and science isn't really your strong suit. Like you should probably look into something else besides veterinary medicine. And so because of that, I got really into choir and singing. And so I actually sang for a lot of my high school. And that was originally what I was when I graduated high school.
That's very interesting.
Yes. But as I kind of moved forward, I realized, I actually think that I can figure out how to study really well, and I can actually get really good at science and math. And I actually started to love it. And so I went back to school, and that's exactly what I did. I started doing my math and science prerequisites, and I realized that I really, really loved this. I did get my music degree, but I also got my animal science prerequisite for vet school. And I actually went ahead and did a master's degree after that because I just really, really loved biology and physiology so much before then going to vet school. But whenever I was younger and I was still trying to get more animal experience, I think something that is just so helpful to know is that especially after the pandemic, Everybody is really hurting for help and for staffing right now, and that's just as true for veterinary medicine and the animal industry. And so it might not be, the most glamorous job, but if you're willing to come in and work hard and do laundry and clean kennels, that will get you into the door, and that will get you face to face with those veterinarians and those animals. And if they see that you have a good work ethic, that's how you can start to build those relationships. Something else I did is had a little bit of help from my parents, but I also started my own pet sitting business when I was younger. And so I would go and take care of animals. And then the other kind of different thing I did was I was a camp counselor for a marine biology camp, teaching young kids at A&M Galveston, which also got me some experience with animals and marine life. So there's lots of opportunities. And if you get some help from an adult, or if you yourself just kind of reach out to your community, you can really find a lot. Some people just could use the help, and they'll absolutely be really willing to take you and show you a little bit of the ropes.
I heard a few very important things that you mentioned in your story. One is, if you're still in school, if you're in primary or secondary school age, Emily mentioned math and science being important for veterinary medicine, because you may be wondering what kind of subjects are important. And so we always think of doctors and nurses, having really good backgrounds in math and science, and those are important. We use those every single day. So I would encourage you guys to study in math and science and be good at those. But even if you aren't, there are certainly other careers that you can work in to help animals. And so if you're not becoming a veterinary technician or a veterinarian, there are lots of other careers that help save animal lives every day, and you can explore those. Another thing that I heard you say, is just kind of having any experience with animals at all. So owning a pet is important. Having some experience with just what it's like to own a pet and their needs, what kind of needs do they have on a daily basis, getting that animal experience, owning a dog or a cat or a rabbit or a rodent, those things count toward your animal handling experience. And then another very important thing you said is getting involved in like camps and creating your own experiences with animals. So any way that you can work with animals at a young age, if that's volunteering at your local veterinary clinic or your local animal shelter, those are certainly ways that you can get involved very early. Now, remember, sometimes there may be an age limit, so you may be able to start volunteering when you get closer to 16 years old, but there are certainly things that you can do younger, like she said, pet sitting might be a good way to start. So thank you so much for that. That's great. And so when you finally decided on a career in veterinary medicine, you obviously are a Texas A&M student. Is there anything about Texas A&M? What would you say is important about the Texas A&M program that made you want to go there for veterinary school?
Sure. There were several things. One, I will unabashedly say I have been raised an Aggie since I was very young. My grandfather was an Aggie and my parents were. And so A&M was always something that was very special to me. But even more than that, there is a reputation. When you find out that you are with a veterinarian, that's an Aggie veterinarian, people know that name, they know where you came from. It's a school that's been around a long time. And then, of course, I love kind of all the traditions about A&M, and I love that that's also something that you can experience with the vet school. And then the other thing is that it's actually one of the least expensive options for vet school in this country. It's one of the very most doable as far as that regard, because vet school can be expensive. So those were all really great things about A&M that I loved.
That's wonderful. And the Houston SPCA is ever so excited about having that partnership with Texas A&M and the College of Veterinary Medicine, and having the students come here to learn all about shelter medicine. It's invaluable to us. So we are happy to have you guys. So now, if you guys have any questions for us about your journey to become a veterinary medical professional, please let us know. I'll be happy to answer those.
Someone asked, is it hard to get into vet school?
Oh, Emily may be able to answer that. I graduated 18 years ago, and things have certainly changed, but I think it's always been somewhat competitive. What do you think?
Absolutely. It is very competitive to get into vet school. There's a lot of people that want to go to vet school. There's a saying that goes something, if it was easy, everybody would do it, because who doesn't love animals and veterinary medicine? And there are things that you can do. For instance, a lot of people don't get in on their first try whenever they apply to vet school because it is so competitive. So a lot of times, I know I had classmates that didn't get in on their first try, and so they would go and they would get a little bit more experience and then apply again. I myself got a little bit more education, so I did my master's before going into vet school. And then the other thing is, whenever you're thinking about how to be a good candidate, obviously you need to have the good grades, right? You need to be good at math and science and study hard. Yeah. but they
For
also
sure.
really want to see that you're a well-rounded individual.
Yes.
So whether you're into the arts, whether you have another passion that goes along with veterinary medicine, they really like to see the other side of that personality and kind of the uniqueness that you can bring to the class.
That's exactly right and well summarized. Education and experience, and then being well-rounded. So great. What other questions can we help you?
Oscar wants to know, what is one thing you learned during your time at Houston SPCA?
Ooh, I love this question. So I've only had actually about 2 days here so far, and it's already just been jam-packed and so wonderful. My first day was actually going out with the animal investigators and actually getting to see and help bring animals in from situations and bring them back to the shelter. And being able to be a part of that was so special, and being able to see exactly what that process was. I actually grew up watching Animal Cops Houston, and so being able to actually see that process and how I could help play a role as a veterinarian was incredibly special. My second day was actually on surgery, and so I was getting to help perform spays and neuters for these animals that are going to get to be adopted and go to new homes. And I not only learned some really wonderful surgical techniques and tips from the veterinarians here, how to get a little bit more efficient sometimes with my surgery, but just being able to see this wonderful facility and how everything works and how we can play a role has just been awesome.
Thank you. That's great.
Dr. Westbrook, they're asking, what does a typical day look like for a veterinarian?
Oh, wow. It can vary. And it depends on whether you're working here in a shelter environment or whether you might be working in a general private practice. So most veterinarians tend to graduate veterinary school and work in a general private practice. And what that means is you are seeing pets that have owners already. They're part of a family, and their pet parents who are bringing their puppy or cat or rabbit or ferret in to see you. And you really do see those pets oftentimes from the moment they're adopted all the way through their entire life. And that's one special thing about working in general practice. And so it's more seeing appointments every day, very similar to when you go to the doctor, and you go to the doctor once or twice a year, you get your physical exam, and you develop a long-term relationship. That's slightly different than working in a shelter environment. One of the things that's different about the shelter environment is the number of animals that we see at one time. You know, the animals that come to the shelter don't have families yet, and we're working to get them families. And so that means they may come in off the street, they're strays, or maybe they are injured or sick, and they're here with us until they get well. We are their family until they get well and they find their forever home. And so it's different in that way, that you kind of feel like the animals in a shelter are yours as a veterinarian and a veterinary professional. All the animals here are with us every day. We see them every day. And it's a little bit different than in general practice, where they go home with their family and they come to see you a couple times a year. Both can be very rewarding. And there's so many more things that you can do as a veterinary professional. You can work in schools and teach. You can work for drug companies and help to develop and sell the products that help to save lives. There's lots of things that you can do, and you don't even have to narrow your options to becoming a veterinarian.
Good. Emily, what has surprised you the most about vet school, or what's one thing you've learned so far?
Oh, what I loved most, or what surprised me the most about vet school, was when I got in, I had no idea how many different options you had within this field that you could do. Because as she was just saying, basically you can go into general practice, just like she was saying, but there's also a lot of other options. Like you can go and work for a higher state agency and help with regulatory medicine. There's also the option I ended up really liking is there are veterinarians who specifically look at cells under the microscopes whenever we can't tell what's going on from the outside of the animal anymore. And with our diagnostics in the clinic, we send it off to special diagnostics labs where we can actually look at that tissue and see if we can see bacteria or what the cells are doing, and we can give a diagnosis that way. And that's called pathology. And that's actually what I've really decided to go towards, and I've really enjoyed.
Yeah, not very many people might think that's exciting to look at a microscope, but it really is to see all the intricate parts of the cells and how they work together to make that animal healthy or not. So very cool.
And Mom is wondering, her kid really wants to be a vet. How can they shadow a vet, or is that an option for kids?
That's a great question. And it really just depends on where they're looking to shadow. So again, shadowing in a veterinary hospital has some pros and cons. Students and young children can learn a lot, but it could potentially be a hazardous environment. So they may want to contact one of the veterinarians or hospital managers first and see if that's an option. There are animals in the hospital. Sometimes they're sick. Sometimes they're not always friendly. And so having young children in the hospital could be, something that we need to be cautious about. But there are opportunities for young children. For example, doing things like coming to Critter Camp. The Houston SPCA has a program called Critter Camp, and you can register your child for Critter Camp that occurs throughout the summer. Those are options. And again, once you are older, around the age of 16 or so, volunteering or getting a full-time job at a shelter or in a veterinary hospital is probably a much easier and safer way. But initially for young children, I think the best way for them to get exposure to animals is owning them, spending time with them in their daily life, especially if they have pets that belong to their family or friends.
A fun question is, do pets talk to you, or how do you know what's wrong?
We think they talk to us.
Absolutely, yeah.
I hear them all the time. I don't know about you.
Oh, absolutely, always, right?
Right, always. So how do you handle that when the pets aren't actually talking out loud?
I love this question because this is part of what makes veterinary medicine so fun, and what makes it different than human medicine is because we can't just go up and say, well, point where it hurts, right? Like, is your stomach hurting? Can you tell me that? When did your stomach start hurting? Like, we can't ask any of those questions. So veterinarians have to be really incredible diagnosticians and using their 5 senses. So we use our hands, we use our eyes, and then we also use special diagnostics that we have, such as running blood work or x-ray machines, to be able to tell a story for these animals who can't tell the story themselves. And that's part of, I think, what makes veterinary medicine so fun.
So cool.
Unique,
It's just like a little mystery. And even a critical part of that is the animals can't talk, but their people can.
Absolutely.
And their family can. I mean, you guys know your pets really well, right? You know if there's a little glimmer in your cat's eye that's not there today. It was there yesterday, but it's not there today. And so the little things like that can help us pick up on, okay, there's something going on with this cat. And so you guys are critical to help us do our job as well.
Yeah, so that's another follow-up question. Like, do vets still have to interact with people a lot, even though it's animal-based?
Yes. How many times do we hear that
question.
people want to become veterinarians because maybe they don't love people a lot and they love animals more? But having good interpersonal skills and working with people is critical. You're working with coworkers all the time, pet parents all the time. I mean, how do you feel about that?
Absolutely. And it's something that maybe it's another thing that might surprise you about veterinary school is a lot of our classes in vet school actually focus on teaching you communication and how to communicate with those clients. Because just like she said, the history is so important whenever you're asking these questions about what's going on with your animal at home. And it's about 80% of the time can lead us to a diagnosis if we can get a good history. So being able to talk to people and being very clear in how you're explaining things is extremely important.
Awesome.
If a family has, younger kids that aren't old enough to volunteer, would they foster litters or anyone that's sick in the shelter to get that experience?
Yes. What a great thing to do, to not only get experience, but to help save lives early on. So if you can talk to your parents, if you can join a foster team for a shelter like the Houston SPCA and become foster parents, what it does is it gives you and your children exposure to animals, getting those animals well. And it's usually a short period of time, so it's not a long-term commitment. And you work to help us save lives. And so really everybody wins in those situations. So becoming a foster parent or even volunteering in your spare time can really help give you that experience that you need.
Dr. Westbrook, what is the most unique animal you have worked with as a vet?
Oh my goodness. One time, it's always been here. The Houston SPCA has given me so much experience. I remember, one time working in our emergency and triage center, and I got a phone call from the Wildlife Center of Texas, who we share property with, and they wanted to bring me a limping armadillo. And wow. I thought, oh, wow, I'm not sure that I've ever treated an armadillo, but it was really a wonderful experience. The armadillo just had a little soft tissue injury, and so the limping was completely treatable. We did some cage rest and some pain medication, but I will always remember that little guy, and I think that was quite fun.
So just because vet school is over, you're still learning and you're still growing?
Still learning.
All the time.
Always. It's been 18 years. I learn something new every day. Medicine is always changing. There's always a species of animal that maybe I haven't seen. And so being able to talk to other people who have that experience and learn and do the very best that I can is always important and a challenge.
Is there an animal that you're scared of?
Oh,
or
What do you think?
intimidated
I'll let
by?
Emily answer that.
I didn't have a ton of cat experience going into vet school, and so I was kind of scared of cats. But I have gotten so much better, and they taught me some really wonderful techniques when it comes to feline friendly and handling cats and how to make sure they have a great experience at the vet clinic. So I feel much better with cats.
I agree. I'm more on the Burmese python, 12-foot long Burmese python spectrum. I might be a little bit scared of those.
Final question for the both of you. What is the best and hardest part about being a vet?
Oh gosh, what do you think?
Let's see.
Here, I'll start with here in the shelter, because we have, our Emily mentioned going out with the cruelty investigations team, and we have a 24-hour ambulance. And, I find sometimes one of the hardest things is to see animals that have come in that have been suffering for a long time, and me wanting to be able to get them completely 100% better, maybe not always being able to, but to see animals, that's the best and worst part, right? It's the worst part because you may not always be able to save them. But the best part is that many times we can, and more often than not we can. And so to see them go from, these unhappy situations to happy situations is always great. I may have covered, I don't know if you have anything.
No, absolutely. I would say probably one of the hardest parts is getting there, right? Like it's a lot of school and a lot of study to get there. And then as we said, once you're done, you don't stop learning. You're constantly trying to keep up to date and learn all the new things as medicine changes. And so that's probably one of the most challenging parts, but I'm going to say that's actually one of the best parts as well, because who doesn't love to just keep learning every single day? Yeah, every day is different. It's great.
Well, again, we thank you guys so much. What great information. If you want more information and detailed information, please look out for the May issue of Pet Talk magazine. In that issue, we will be discussing further the road to veterinary medicine and giving you more tips on how you can enter a career with animals. So thank you for joining us. Thank you, Emily.
Thank
we are
you
so happy to have you and your classmates. And most importantly, Trooper, thank you for being a trooper during this entire program here. And we know he's going to find his forever home real soon. So again, come on down this weekend. But if you can't make it this weekend, be sure to put April 23rd on your calendar. Next Saturday is our open house from 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. We're going to have all types of activities, cotton candy, food trucks, talks from our barn and wildlife team. It's going to be a fun time to be had by all. So come on down and see us. Can't wait to have you on our campus. We will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.